So, what I want to encourage you to do today is collect information about where those kids are this second because you're going to forget. It's so interesting that so many parents for years struggle with their kids learning how to read, right? Either they catch on really quickly or they do a moderate amount, but then there's some who just really, really struggle. Okay. Just like you learn to walk differently and talk at different times, reading is the same way too. And so what happens is you struggle, 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 and one day all of a sudden you wake up and you realize it's just not as hard as it used to be. Have you ever had that happen before? It does to me all the time. And so, what I want to encourage you to do today is take information, record it, and tuck it away so that later you can look back and you'll remember, oh my gosh, I forgot when we didn't know any of this stuff. Especially if you're working in a more remote location, you're going to need that to give you confidence and assurance about moving on ahead. Ongoing assessment, you want to definitely collect it at different points of the learning, collect artifacts, tuck all those things away in an assessment file so that you can look back and reflect. Okay. Some of the first ones I like to do are reading samples. Now, at school, we do those through a program called DRA, which is developmental reading assessment. And basically, those are books the kids have never seen before. Because if you're gathering new information on something they already know, it's not really the right thing to do. Okay. So you want something definitely that you only use when you assess. And basically, you're giving them a book where you judge to be. And if they're beginning readers, you guys, that's very simple. That's the 2 words per page books. Okay. Either they can or they can't. And you look for something a little lower or a little higher, right? A lot of kids can tell a lot about books by looking at the pictures. So you might be surprised with some of those. So you're going to gather that information. If I were you, I would videotape too. Don't give them answers. If they ask questions, just say, just do the best you can. Also, before you sit down to test, don't make a big deal about it. Don't act like it's the most important thing they've ever done. Don't put such emphasis that they're perfect this day, but several weeks later, when you really think they've grown, but because they weren't working on that perfect level, you're going to have some frustration with that. Okay. So just act like it's a normal, plain old day and say, let's just read this today. And I'm going to take a movie of you while we do it. Okay. And oh, for today, I'm not going to answer any questions. Let's just see what you can do by yourself. And then we'll just tuck it away. Okay. The same thing with writing. You're going to want a writing sample. You might hear crickets chirp, especially if you haven't typically done that, but just put a piece of paper down or a little staple together book and say, let's just make a book. And you do that and then you tuck it away. Okay. You're going to be able to tell a lot later. Another thing that I've always liked to do is draw a person. There actually was a draw a person assessment maybe 25, 30 years ago we looked at doing, but just ask them, draw a person from head to toe. It's amazing. Just developmentally, little kids, well, you'll see what they do. And then over time, they start noticing things like necks and ears, noses. Don't mention anything to them, too. Just say, draw a person. If they say a stick person, say, well, whatever. It'd be nice if it were a full shape of a person. But you really can tell a lot about how a little person grows by looking at what you've never taught them to draw, but just what they begin noticing over time. You'll also want to notice if they know that letters out of order, put letters down and let them tell you what those are. It'd be great if you could figure out a way for them to tell you the sounds they hear for those letters. Numbers for sure, because a lot of little kids confuse letters and numbers and shapes. They all look the same to them. So that's all really good information to collect. What's so interesting too is that children later, when you pull it back out, they're going to want to fix it. Or in one of my cases, a little girl looked at her work and said, I didn't do that. And I said, well, actually, I think this is your name that you've written, and this was yours. She said, I would have never done anything like that. Y'all, this was 6 months later. She said, that head is all lumpy, and that is not mine. It's just so interesting how quickly they grow. And so if you don't gather some of that information at the beginning, you're going to miss seeing some of the progress later. And that progress is going to really bolster you to keep moving in the days ahead, right? So definitely to ask them to write their first name, even if they skip letters, don't put letters, write beginning letters, it doesn't matter. If they can, just say, put your middle name, last name. You'll also just say, here's a sheet of paper. Hey, write the words you can think of. Write all the words you can think of. Might be crickets the first couple of times, right? But then you'll start seeing they get a lot more confidence. They get a lot more skills. And all of a sudden, one day they're making a whole list of rhyming words or names or dinosaurs. Or they might put that at the beginning, but it's great to know what they do know. So, my challenge for you today is to try to look at your child in a real way, who they are as a reader and a writer, who they are as a mathematician. Just put some blank paper out, gather some documentation, put the date on it, put it in a folder, and put it away. And later, when we talk about reflection and having your young children look at their old pieces, look at their new pieces, and compare the growth, you're going to be amazed. And you're going to be so thankful you took the time to do this today.